So as a kid, I always used to watch this Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon that used to air back in 1994 or 5, and I guess that really shows how much of an old fart I am. That aside, Sonic used to lug around this type of ring called a power ring. That's what it was referred to in that particular show. And as a kid, you're not really worried about the lore, like you just understand that there's a world, the Blue Hedgehog, that's fighting against Dr. Robotnik. So all these alternate universes in all these cartoons were kind of one and the same for me, right? So I always assumed that this ring was just this power ring that made Sonic stronger, and I kind of left it at that. And ever since, I never really sat back and questioned what the hell these things actually are. Because not only are there rings, there's blue rings, giant rings, big rings, dummy rings, dash rings, dark rings, power rings. I already said power rings. Red star rings. You know, all of these rings are in the game, and like I want to see if there's like a little bit of lore behind that. And this video is kind of unscripted. I haven't really wrote out a script for this, so
this is garbage slate.
Bear with me. What exactly is the purpose of these rings? We see them scattered throughout Sonic levels all the time. And while I give props to like comics and animation for trying to explain what these things are, especially like very early on where it didn't really matter. Of course, this is meant to be a collectible in the games that you grab a bunch, you move a little bit faster as you grab them, and if you hold on to them till the end of the stage, you're going to be getting a higher score, which could grant you extra lives. For the sake of game design, there was a lot of incentive to gather as many rings as possible, and it just felt good. Just a very satisfying chime every time you grab one of these things, and they've been a staple in Sonic games ever since. Use them to buy food in Sonic Unleashed, use them buy upgrades in Sonic Generations, you use them for a myriad of things, and they're barely ever referenced by Sonic in general, but they're just so ingrained in Sonic lore. Everyone knows the Sonic chime. Shout out to all the Florida rest stops out there that have the Sonic chime on their cash registers. I really don't know what's up with that. Go check out Nexpo's video on that. It's pretty fascinating. So we see these rings in every form of Sonic media, right? The first time that I actually saw it try to be explained was in that Saddam cartoon where they said it was a power ring, and this is directly from the Sonic Wiki. The power rings were invented by Sir Charles Hedgehog for Sonic to battle villains. They are generated by a machine powered by the Power Rock, which is located in the Power Ring Pool in the Great Forest. One power ring rises to the surface every day, 2 every day later on, and if not caught, it sinks back underwater. The Power Ring's energy can only be harnessed by Sonic, which he can use to temporarily boost his speed, and additionally they are used to temporarily restore the free will of a roboticized victim and block a roboticizer. So I want to give this cartoon props for actually trying to craft a story surrounding the rings. I think it would later actually inspire how the rings worked in Sonic X as well. Sonic will use the rings to get a boost of power, and his allies will often throw him the ring, and then that's when he'll pretty much finish one of Eggman's robots off.
Pause.
At the end of the episode. So the purpose of the rings are kind of similar in those two animations, but I want to see if there's anything written down as far as the impact of rings on the game. And you already know how the rings work in the games. It allows you to take a hit, and then the second time around, Sonic is dead. But I wanted to see if Japan or Sega of America had any type of lore surrounding the rings, and if they could give us some type of explanation. And this is the earliest thing that I could find, which is basically in the Sonic the Hedgehog Bible, which I've covered a couple times in ancient lore stories that I've brought up in previous videos. But the Sonic the Hedgehog Bible is something that was drafted by Sega of America to kind of craft the world around Sonic the Hedgehog. Sega Japan was just saying, hey, this is a hedgehog that moves fast and he's going after an evil doctor who's trying to conquer the area. Sega of America came up with something a little bit more nuanced, and that's where you know about the whole Dr. Kintabor story where he's trying to suppress all the evil in the world and the experiment backfires and he turns into Dr. Robotnik. The rings are actually referenced in that, so I'm also reading this from the wiki. As documented in the second Sonic the Hedgehog Bible draft released by Sega of America, the rings, referred to as gold rings as well, were what made up Dr. Ovi Kintabor's amazing transformation machine, or ATM for short. Very clever. This machine consisted of thousands of rings that constantly flowed good karma around the machine's core as it transferred evil from one object to another. However, the ATM explodes and the gold rings are scattered throughout the zones of Mobius, which what they were calling it back in the day, Sonic's planet. And then when Sonic later came across the rings and picked them up, they would protect him from harm, which I think is a very simple explanation, and that's generally the purpose of rings in the early Sonic games as well, before it became like a form of currency or used for upgrades, etc. I guess the weirdest part about that explanation is that that whole story was scrapped. Sega of America and Sega of Japan don't really see that storyline as the canon Sonic storyline. So rings are pretty mysterious as far as their origin, but there's another type of ring that would actually be pretty interesting, and it applies to the Sonic movie as well. So there are these giant rings that were introduced in the very first Sonic the Hedgehog game. So this giant ring has the possibility of appearing at the end of the zone if the player has 50 or more rings, and jumping into that will take you to the special stage where you can obtain the Chaos Emerald. A lot of times rings are associated with collecting Chaos Emeralds and accessing bonus stages. So in that initial game, that big ring takes you to that area, much like you see in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, where he collects these rings to transport himself to other worlds and teleport. And these giant rings would pop up in Sonic the Hedgehog CD, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and all of them serve that same purpose. This giant ring will just transport you to some level where you get to collect this mystical item that you need to probably collect 7 of to get to the end of the game with the true ending. So with that said, the Archie comic actually ties rings together with the Chaos Emerald, and they call them power rings in that comic as well. But apparently they were originally natural byproducts of the Chaos Emeralds. Would make a lot of sense. If you're collecting a bunch, you have the opportunity to get to the Chaos Emerald. You would figure that the two are correlated. But we don't really see this in the game's lore or anything like that. The only time that we see the two kind of connected later on in the series is when Sonic turns supersonic and he needs a bunch of rings to keep that form up. So much like the original Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, the Archie comic would actually go on to try to explain that the rings came from Lake of Rings as well. And these are naturally occurring bodies of water on Sonic's planet that just generated these rings from time to time, which I would love to see referenced in actual games, because Sega doesn't seem to want to have any type of lore surrounding the rings themselves, but I would love for them to be related to the Chaos Emeralds or have some type of relation to those type of lakes, just to kind of, you know, spruce up the lore and world building of Sonic's world a little bit. I think that's what Sonic games kind of lack right now, and seeing that we're getting Sonic Frontiers very soon, which is going to be open world, I would love to see some type of world building there, but I have a feeling that all of this is going to take place in like some alternate dimension, just so Sonic can have this sandbox and nobody's going to ask questions about this current universe or anything like that. But hey, with Ian Flynn at the head, maybe he'll bring in some of that lore that he brought into the Archie comics into Sonic Frontiers. Now, I know some of you are like, Mentok, you're looking too much into this. This is not something that should be taken that seriously. But you know, I take all aspects of Sonic lore seriously on this channel. If I'm collecting rings the entire time, I kind of want to know where they come from, you know? Mario has coins. Who knows where those come from, but at least we can just say somebody left money lying around. But if they're just scattered everywhere and they're super important to keeping Sonic alive and important to the plot as far as Super Sonic goes and keeping him energized and ready to go, I think that there needs to be some type of explanation. And I think the closest that we're going to get to that is in the Sonic movie. The movie plot was centered around those rings and Sonic having to get those rings back to escape the human world. So we see Tails in the end of the first movie actually transport through one of those rings. So I honestly think that that's going to be a very important form of transportation in this Sonic movie universe that they're building. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen at the end of Sonic movie 2, but I know that the rings are going to be important to Knuckles and Tails and Sonic, and whether or not they go home or come back, I can only speculate at this point, but I would love to see them kind of expand on the origin of those rings. And you know why they exist. It's not a super important detail. I can chalk it up as a magical item, but I would love to see some type of explanation there so we can at least lock some of this lore together. But my favorite explanation out of all of these is basically the Archie comic initially tying them to the Chaos Emeralds as a byproduct. Because that energy is kind of related to Super Sonic, who needs the Chaos Emeralds to transform. And also we've seen the giant rings transport Sonic and other characters to areas where these Chaos Emeralds are housed. But I want to see some of your theories in the comments below. But like specifically, there's no backstory on these rings in general. So give me your favorite fan theory. I am working hard on the next portion of the Mario video, so look out for that. But in the meantime, your boy has to be editing and all that stuff. If you haven't checked out part 1, go ahead and check that out and follow me on the social media outlets that I have in the description below. I appreciate every single one of you, and until next time, the Prophet has spoken.